I'm Dave Giovannoni. I'm with First Sounds. First Sounds is dedicated to the proposition that the earliest recorded sounds can be made available to all people for all time. Over the last couple years, we've discovered audio recordings that were made before Edison invented the phonograph. That really has focused us on the very earliest sounds that we have found in Paris, made in between 1857 and 1860, 20 years before Edison invented the phonograph. What we've been doing over the last year and a half or so is identifying those recordings, studying them, studying the milieu and the inventor, Edward Leon Scott de Martinville, and playing some of them back. These are recordings made on smoked paper. The paper was wrapped around a drum, not unlike an early cylinder phonograph. The recording mechanism was a diaphragm and stylus assembly that vibrated, not unlike a phonograph, although the sound waves were recorded side to side, not up and down or hill and dale as they were in the early phonograph. So they are essentially squiggles on a piece of paper. They were meant to be viewed and studied visually, not heard back. The whole concept of playing back sound didn't happen until Thomas Edison came up with that idea late in 1877. But as early as 1857, we have heard recordings made onto this paper, onto smoked paper. How do we play them back? We scan, make very high resolution images of these documents from the originals in the archives in Paris. And then we process them essentially and convert the image to sound. What they were trying to do at the time was to first demonstrate that sounds out of the air could in fact be captured on paper. In the same way that a camera or a daguerreotype made an image of an object, a visual object, they were trying to recreate an automatically made, without human intervention, mechanical recording of sound. That's what they were trying to do, and they were using this as a laboratory instrument to measure the frequency of sounds that were captured from the air, or to study the different vowel sounds, for instance. What does ah look like? What does oo look like? What does ee look like? And as well as the consonants. They were using this new instrument to study all of that. It was all new to them. For instance, some of the things that we've played back, we hear the inventor, Edward Leon Scott de Martinville, himself, singing a vocal scale, do, re, mi, etc., about that poorly. We hear him singing a song. This is what made the headlines last year, Au clair de la lune. We premiered here at AES a cornet recording that was made in 1857, 20 years before Edison invented the phonograph. And it's a scale on a cornet, da 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 da. But 1857, what could be cooler than that, man? What's the relevance of it? What's the relevance of looking at Niepce's photography from the 1840s? I mean, these are pioneer experiments. I think there's a couple things that make them important. First, Edward Leon Scott de Martinville, who has been known to historians over the years, but pretty much everything that was known about him and his work has not been correct. We are in the process of correcting that record, that historic record. Second, for me, as a sound historian, or an archaeophonist, as we like to call ourselves now, it has really illuminated how mankind came to the idea of gathering sounds out of the air. I mean, that's a pretty radical idea. This study has given me a perspective and an appreciation on what happened in France in the late 1850s and early 1860s in the development of those concepts. I have to add, First Sounds is really the work of a bunch of collaborators who do this because of our shared passion. Patrick Feaster has sort of served as our chief researcher, if you will, and has guided me to the archives in which we actually found these things. You know, he's looking at documents and saying, you know, there might be a stash of phonograms over there in Paris. So I go over there and I look in some dossiers and I find them. And then we negotiate the privilege of scanning them and bringing them back and making them sing or talk. Richard Martin and Megan Hennessy, the other two founders, along with me and Patrick of First Sounds, have done a lot of work with us, and many, many other people have aided us in our efforts. So I don't want that to go unrecognized. There's a list of the most important folks at firstsounds.org. And at firstsounds.org you can see really all of our work that's been published to date. Some really fine work by the people who've been contributing to this. It's all freely available as well as the sounds. They're all released under a Creative Commons attribution license. And we've heard back, some people are doing some pretty crazy things with those sounds. The folks at Tonehammer sent us news that they had created a whole range of samples from one of the phonograms. And so now you can load that into your synth and actually play sounds that were recorded in 1860. And we've heard a couple compositions, very ethereal, very cool. I would encourage anybody to play with those things. It's just a lot of fun. Send us the results. And we're very interested in hearing your MP3s. We don't have anything formal, but you know, there are a lot of things that we need help on. If you got time and you got skills, we get a lot of offers from a lot of people, but only a few good people so far have really stepped up and invested the time that it really takes to advance this project, and we welcome that. Go to firstsounds.org, click on the info, that'll send an email to us, and we'll get back to you.